Hey y'all, and welcome to the video. So this is going to be part 5 of the Jaguar XJ project series. And in the last video, it looked like we were just about done. I was about to take the car to an alignment shop, and I did take it there. And when it got there, the guys told me, we don't recommend aligning this car. Your lower control arms are bad, and we can see the play in the front suspension as we drive the car up onto the rack. And so they started checking on everything on the car for me. And they said all of the lower control arms, there's 2 on each side, so a total of 4. And then all 4 shocks, which kind of disappoints me because I know these shocks aren't original. They're coil conversion shocks. And then 1 of the control arms on the rear, the upper left. So most of it I want to do. And we've got the parts here. We've got the rearward lowers here from Bison Performance, the forward lower control arms, and these are them from Detroit Axle, except they sent me one of the wrong ones, so we're not going to start on the lower control arms today. We have shocks, and then we have our rear left upper, which is what I'm going to do today. And this is a Lincoln LS control arm that should work on the car. So here's what we're dealing with on the rear. You've got 1 bushing bolts in here and another one back there. And then you've got a ball joint here. And we have a brake line that actually runs through the middle. So we're gonna have to take the brake line loose, and we're gonna end up having to bleed the brakes. The ball joint's shot, so I would say we probably needed to replace this one. But it doesn't matter because it's hand loose. Okay. So there goes one thing. Probably have to actually drop this back. There we go. It's not on too tight. Okay, that's starting to spin. Okay, so let's size this up for 18 millimeter. Okay. Let's see if we can get it on there. Okay. Well, let's see if it will stay on there as we start cranking. So it's on there, but it needs to be held. Needs to be held up. Oh man, that was way harder than it needed to be. I got one of these wedged in there to try and hold that wrench steady. And there's our nut. So that's one. Now we just got this one, and I might have to take the wheel well liner out. There it is. Okay, now this comes loose, but we have a brake line that needs to come off. So there's 2 copper crush washers on here. They are staying on there for now. And then I just got to feed this control arm out of here. All right, finally that went in. Okay, brake bleeding time. Let me show y'all how I do this on my own. I get one of these bottles. I like to use these big liter bottles. And I got a little clear line going down in there, and it's submerged at the bottom in fresh brake fluid. And I got the top, fits right over the bleeder screw there with a 10mm line wrench to loosen. And then I have the reservoir cap off here. We already refreshed this with some fresh fluid when we did the rear brake job. Now we're going to get an actual bleed and get some fresh fluid going through at least one of the brake lines. So I'll set y'all up here, and I'm just going to go pump the brake pedal, and we'll watch the air bubbles in here. Got air bubbles in there. It's barely pushing out. Brake pedal's pretty stiff. Gotta watch our level in the reservoir. All right, so here's our final setup. I had to disconnect this sensor right here and feed it back up over the top of this thing. That's how it's meant to go, over the top. You get your brake line down through the middle. And then there is also this ride height thing. Mine's, I think it's meant to be secured, but mine is, I think, broken. But that was for the air suspension, ride height sensor. But I still have it secured up here on the control arm. So now a little bit of brake clean. All right, let's see how we do. This will be a good test of the battery. See how that battery holds up after 2 weeks of sitting. And it's been a little cooler weather too, so you'll probably hear it clack a little bit on the cold start, like it does. And you can see it right there, that belt tensioner is clacking against its limits. That's what's making that noise. I don't know why it does it. It is a new tensioner and a new belt. It's only about 2,000 miles on that. Hey y'all, and welcome back. Trying to finish up the front suspension rebuild on the car. Driver's side is already done. It was an adventure. Had some struggles, got into a pickle a few times. Hopefully some lessons learned that make the passenger side go smoothly, and I'll be telling some stories as we go through the process on the passenger side. Here's our rearward lower control arm. We're still missing the frontward lower. It's not going to be here till tomorrow, but it is an easy change. The only thing you have to take out is the lower itself. So we're going to reuse the lower for today. When the new one gets here, it's going to be like a 15-minute job, and I'll have it done. So I'm remembering all the tools that I used from the last job. And here's the old parts from that. They don't even look that bad. I think there was some sloppiness in this shock bushing. This one's a little dry. This might be a little bit dry, but seems pretty solid in there. This one might have had some play in it, but it's not destroyed. Like if you look at the rearward upper that I swapped, that's destroyed with play. So these didn't even look that bad, but I think the passenger side of the car is worse than the driver's side. So I expect that these control arms are going to be not as good looking when they come out. Okay, here we go. I got the sway bar link, one of the nuts loose, and that's it so far. I got the 4 shock tower bolts that it's probably shouldn't spin on us. Okay, so there is this brake line. There's a bracket back here, but instead of taking the bracket out, you can take the bracket out if you don't want to take the caliper off, but I feel like we're going to end up having to take the entire knuckle off the car. So, okay, yeah, tie rod end coming out. There you go. So on the other side, I ended up stripping this nut. I ended up messing up the top thread or two here, tapping that with a hammer. I shouldn't have done that. And I ended up finding another nut that miraculously would thread on here, but it wasn't one like this. So had to be a strong nut to do that, so at least it has that going for it. I need to take the whole control arm out just in case this wants to think about falling down. We'll do this. But I need to take the whole control arm with it. So we have to do this one loose next. I think that's an 18 as well down here. This one is a little more corroded than the one on the other side. That's weird. All right, big T60 is out. We get this sway bar link way up and out of the way. And then we can actually take this guy out. So this is the part where you'd be stretching here. If you were just replacing the shock, you'd have to stretch this so far it would start pulling on the brake line. So that's why you got to take at least the bracket up here loose if you're just doing the shocks. Okay, so that's out. There it goes. Okay, now she's spinning. And if I recall, I think I used a 3/4 or something on the other side to hold that steady. Yeah, at least it'll be good enough. Yeah. So it's got a washer like this. It slides on the threads like that. Unique. Come out. That's all you have to do. Yes, you got to pull the whole knuckle off, but it saves you from damaging the lower ball joint like I did on the other side. So I saw some play in this thing where the shock is. This other end, it actually does appear that there's some disintegration of the bushing here at the top and the bottom. The bushing from one side to the other. I can see light peeking its way through this one. So this is probably bad. Should have put this in first before I tighten the control arm down. There we go. We still got the ABS light on, but we'll see if that comes off. I went in the driver's side, made sure the sensor was oriented right. I might need to disconnect the battery to get this to go away, but we'll see here in a second. And I put together the passenger side with one of the old forward lower control arms just so I could go for a test drive, and of course so I could move the jacks over to the driver's side to deal with the ABS. So we're gonna go out for a little drive and just see how it is. And hopefully my steering's more straight now that both sides are done, and we'll see. Okay, good news. As soon as we got moving, it ABS light went out. But I think we need that alignment really bad. About the ABS issue, I showed that there. There was no context because the clips got edited out for the ABS, but long story short, the sensor was not plugged in properly on this side. I must have had it 180 degrees or something. It's still installed, but it caused an error because the sensor was not facing the right direction. So that's all that was, thankfully. Hey. There is a flag on it, so it's possible I won't need to use 2 wrenches, but so far, so good. Okay. All right, it's resting right there. Good. Now we just got to get this guy back out. All right, she's out. It's a little bit dinged up. Let me show y'all. You know, this was smooth before I started pressing things in. Not too bad. It actually, to the touch, it's kind of smooth. But you can see, definitely been had a tough time there. Anyways, there's the old one. You know, I don't see a whole lot wrong with this one. To go down. It's just slightly off. This is where we are now. Let's see what we look like after 1, 2, 3. That puts the stud right there. I think that's significant enough. Okay, so I think we're looking pretty good here after that tie rod adjustment. I want to do a test drive and see how it drives, and if it's steering good, then we'll go down that rough road and see how the suspension is. And lately, the car has been behaving with the ignition, so let's see if that continues. Yep. It's probably 9 or 10 times in a row we've been good. All right, I've just been driving for a little bit, and I'm happy to say no more erratic steering. In fact, it's driving quite beautifully, hands off the wheel. just a slight leftward drift over a period of time. I might be pretty dang close on the front end alignment right now. But yeah, it's driving really nice. Let's get on those bumpy roads and see how that does, because we've replaced pretty much the entire front suspension. Here we go. Yeah. Not a single clunk there. So we're at the end of the video, I think. And unlike the last video where we said we're ready for an alignment, I think this time we really are actually ready for an alignment. Quite happy with how the car just drove down the road right now. We have come a long way. Look at this pile of parts over here. We replaced 7 of the 10 control arms on the car, 4 sway bar links, 2 tie rod ends, 2 lateral arms, rear brake job, and then we had a diff oil change, a trans oil change, an intake air filter, and a cabin air filter. I might even be forgetting some things. So we've come a long way, and we're very close now, just an alignment away, I think, from actually being able to go drive the car and enjoy the car like I've been wanting to do. So if you made it this far, thanks again. There will be more videos, I'm sure. I have other project ideas in mind, but this was the main phase of the maintenance that I wanted to get done on the car before we start really using it. So y'all have a good one. I'll see you next time.